Welcome to the Daily Slant, powered by Pro Football Focus and brought to you by DraftKings.com. I'm your host, Josh Hayes, joined with a bow by my co-host, Renee Miller. You can always find Renee's work over at Pro Football Focus and along with ESPN, Roto-World. And you can follow her on Twitter at Renee Miller01. You can also follow me on Twitter at Josh Hayes FS. Renee, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. I was just saying, I got caught in a rainstorm today. It would have been a better day for me to have to wear the bow, but it looks really good on you.
You're so lying. I really felt like you're a truthful person up until this moment. It's you're lucky I have like a 2-year-old daughter, so I had an array to choose from. So I'm going baby blue.
Yeah, I know. I was going to have to go to a store if I lost. So.
I'm so mad at Crabtree. First quarter touchdown in the end zone. I was like, you know what? Never again with Renee. She's too good.
I told the truth about Crabtree.
She did tell the truth. And you know what? Crabtree made people millions, by the way. I saw a lot of Derek Carr, Crabtree stacks. So congratulations to those people. They should be the ones wearing a bow, not me.
Yeah.
But I'm a man of my word. Don't expect it for the whole show. I'm going to sneeze or something and it's going to fall off. So get your Twitter picture in now before it's too late. So, coming up on today's show, we're going to break down all the laps and everything for Week 10. We're not going to talk about Crabtree anymore. He's a guy who's dead to me. We should talk about how Amari Cooper greatly underperformed. That's how I feel about that. A lot of interesting information coming across the wire. Some big injury news that are going to affect DFS here for Week 10. So we'll definitely dive into that. Some people getting signed, some people coming back from the dead. So we'll handle all of that. But before we get into all of this, I want to let you know that football is in full swing. Week 10 already feels like the playoffs thanks to 1 Week Fantasy at DraftKings.com. With millions being won each week, every play and every game could take you closer to a life-changing payday or a hair bow, for that matter. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use the promo code PFF to play for free with your first deposit in this Sunday's $1 Million Fantasy Football Contest. Enter PFF for free at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com. All right, Renee, let's go ahead and get into it. Your takeaways. How did Week 9 treat you overall?
Overall, it treated me really well. I had success in all kinds of games across the sites. Not $1 million success, but I'm echoing a little bit. I'm hearing some feedback from your end.
Okay.
Overall, Week 9 was a good one. I saved a lot of Monday night players. I had a lot of Langford. He came through nicely last night.
I had a bunch of shares with Langford. I had a bunch of shares with Stevie Johnson as well, which, you'll take. He wasn't like a $1 million winner for you that way. But there was a lot of people who had decisions between Malcolm Floyd and Stevie Johnson. I felt good about steering everybody towards Stevie this week. So at least you can feel, a lot of people, Malcolm Floyd, their lineup like lived and died with them, be like the difference between them being in the money or out of the money because they took an absolute donut from him. So and kudos to you on the Danny Woodhead call. That turned out to be something that was very huge. I really didn't know how much of the game flow he was going to get. I was actually more concerned about how much Gates was going to eat up targets from Stevie or anybody else in that, but Danny Woodhead was an absolute monster, and it looks like he's going to be set up fairly well going forward. They've just decided to turn their running game into 5-yard curl routes out of the backfield for Danny Woodhead, and he's an absolute mismatch. There isn't anybody that you can really, I don't know what are you going to do, assign to a safety to him or a slot corner out of the backfield for him, because he's an absolute matchup nightmare. He's the running back version of Julian Edelman. Would you agree? Sort of, and that's maybe a lesser version of that, but
right. I'm on board with that. Sure. Okay. I mean, I feel like there's two kinds of people, those that like and believe in Danny Woodhead and those that don't. And I've always been a believer. So it's really hard to convince people that he's a good DFS asset if they don't like him for whatever reason.
The problem is everybody feels like they're using a timeshare guy, and it is true. He is actually in timeshare, but the difference is if people would have put him in the same mold, like if Danny Woodhead was still playing for the Patriots, everybody would love him. They're like, oh yeah, the Patriots know how to use those guys, because it's Phillip Rivers and he's had some uneven games and they drafted Melvin Gordon. There was just all this stigma that, for whatever reason they were going to try to go away from Danny Woodhead. And, there's a million other reasons. Keenan Allen blowing up, Antonio Gates coming back. There's all kinds of excuses for why Danny Woodhead was supposed to be out of the game flow. But so monster performance for him. I'll be definitely looking out for some good matchups going forward. The difference here is, like, what do you do if in a matchup where you feel like Danny Woodhead's viable? Are you looking for passing stats? Are you looking for, a bad run defense? How do you sort of like script that for your lineup building, Renee?
Well, I think that San Diego's all about the passing game. So yes, I'm looking for the passing stats. He's not getting yards on the ground. So when I do I'm looking at opponents in terms of receiving yards overall, pass coverage in general, but also, you can separate out, at least on ESPN, the points allowed to running backs on the ground and through the air. So you can look at which teams have been more susceptible to pass catching running backs, and go back through and see who they faced and try to understand where the good opportunities are. So as long as his price stays low going forward, obviously they're not playing this week, but he's always on my radar.
All right, I like that play, and that's probably just gone underutilized by myself. And I feel like he's never relatively priced up because you don't see like 100-yard performance in either aspect. It's just a ton of, like, he's just a DraftKings superstar, a ton of PPR stats, and they're not afraid to give him a carry in the red zone either, which is a little bit crazy since they drafted Melvin Gordon. But hey, if that's the way they want to run it, it's more beneficial for the Danny Woodhead owners. Yeah. All right, so we might as well just go ahead and dive right in here to week 10. We'll start the quarterback position here. I guess we can take Andrew Luck off the board for the next couple weeks. I know he was on bye this week here, but what do you think this does to the Colts offense? Just really quickly before we dive in here, are you going to be fading guys like Gore, Moncrief, T.Y. Hilton because Matt Castle's in the lineup, or is he still going to make enough sense to keep that offense viable in DFS?
Was that offense viable? I missed that part of the season.
Well, they've been scoring. It's just,
so yeah, obviously it's a knock, but they weren't performing to Andrew Luck standards or Colts standards that we were accustomed to or expecting or hoping for anyway. So I don't think there's a significant downgrade. I had really low expectations for this offense anyways, every week. After the first couple, it was like, okay, this is not the team I thought they were. And Luck's been dealing with a lot of different injuries and playing through. And I don't know how a team gets away with a lacerated kidney and not reporting that. But that's a serious injury. We certainly hope he takes time to recover fully. But no, I wasn't enthusiastic about this team to begin with. And if anything, it benefits Gore. But on the flip side of that, we're getting into the second half of the season, and Gore has been really good. But they haven't exactly used him sparingly. So it's a question how his health is going to hold up for the rest of the year. I'm lukewarm at best.
Yeah, you know what? I think that it is probably going to, if there's one person that benefits, at least in the short term, it's probably Frank Gore. And then, the watch list or the countdown to Ahmad Bradshaw will go down because nobody trusts, for whatever reason, people feel like Frank Gore's not very durable, but he actually has been pretty durable throughout his career. But the issue that you have there is, the clock is ticking on the guy. If anybody who's been, significant less stewards, actually Ahmad Bradshaw. Ahmad Bradshaw I'd be more afraid to use in DFS if for some reason Frank Gore was out, because he seems to never last more than a couple games there as well. So, all right, quarterback position here. Some interesting plays for week 10. I think one of the biggest movers and shakers we have to talk about, like we briefly mentioned here, Derek Carr. Jumping into the top 5 in quarterback ratings here overall. Your take on Carr for this week?
I like Carr a lot, but not for this week. I think Minnesota's defense is legit. Mm-hmm. Even though they're going to be on the road this week, I think you have better matchups to take advantage of. I know what Derek Carr did going into New York against the Jets and everything, and they're certainly a legit defense as well. But yeah, I mean, his price is still so good. I'm looking at it; it's like really hard to ignore. But
that's what I'm saying. The optimizer, the Fantasy Labs optimizer on PFS is feeling pretty decent about it too. They like him at 7,500. He's got a top 6 projection, which to me at 7,500 firmly entrenches him in GPP territory. I mean, he's going up against teams that he was supposed to get slowed down against, like the Jets. I don't know where we rank Pittsburgh.
San Diego had a good pass defense when he played them.
Yeah.
They had a highly rated pass defense a few weeks back.
Yeah, the kid Verrett is a strong corner, the guy who actually picked off Jay Cutler for the pick 6. Yeah, I think Eric Weddle has a little bit struggled more than he has in years past. But overall, that's supposed to be somebody fairly solid. And Derek, I'm done betting against Derek Carr. I'm just going to have shares every week. I don't have to be all in and invested, and I'm probably not going to use them for cash. But at this point, I think number 4 ranked quarterback overall on PFF, that has to have to give some credit to that. So. Oh, and as a side note too here, we'll get to running backs here in a little bit, but it looks like Latavius Murray is in concussion protocol. So if he doesn't make it out of that, we can sort of talk about whether we of Marcel Reese or was it Tywan Jones? Yeah. So I mean, that sounds like it's going to be a little bit of a running back, passing back timeshare that you may not want a part of, but we can talk about that once we get to running backs. All right. So who are your top options this week?
I mean, Tom Brady is the top option. He's super, super expensive, but the matchup is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. This is that's the end. I mean, whatever. If you can afford him and you can build around him, go for it.
Do you have Rodgers as 1B, or is he a tier below Brady in your mind? Detroit's pass defense has been suspect at best.
Yeah, he's definitely a 2. The matchup is great for Aaron Rodgers. I love him for a bounce back week, but something seems off. Aaron Rodgers didn't used to be matchup. I mean, he used to be matchup proof, I guess is the way to put it. And we're not seeing that. So yes, it's a good game. They're back at home. I like him for a bounce back, but I don't think he's as safe as Tom Brady.
I mean, we say bounce back, but he had 4 touchdowns, right, against Carolina. I really want him to get back into the 8 touchdown territory. 4 was not enough for me.
No, I'm not selfish or greedy, but I think so the bottom line came out okay. But watching that game,
they were getting trashed in the first half. Aaron Rodgers, people were deleting their DraftKings apps after the first half. With their Aaron Rodgers in their lineups, it looked terrible. It was like 6 straight quarters of bad ball from Aaron Rodgers. So I understand where people are coming from. So for me too, I'm in that same situation where I'm going to keep going to the well, because I feel like the under ownership is still going to be there. People saw him get picked on 4th down, and the fact that they lost 2 in a row. I think the narrative just overall is negative for the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, and hopefully that creates some under ownership that we can take advantage of. So, and by the way, Randall Cobb, top 10 wide receiver cornerback matchup according to Mike Clay's chart. So all the more reason to get some shares, and I think he's safe for cash. I probably have to make Tom Brady my first choice, as well. I'm with you there. We all saw the shootout with, Breeze and Eli 2 weeks ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of replay of that going on, probably at least on Tom Brady's end. I don't know if Eli can match, that sort of firepower with New England's D, which is obviously a higher grade than New Orleans, but
for sure.
All right. Who are you sliding down and taking some shots on in GPPs here at quarterback?
I mean, the 2 cheap guys that I'm looking at, and they're completely matchup. Well, maybe not completely matchup dependent in Blake Bortles' case, because he's been pretty consistent. But he gets the Ravens and their luxury pass defense that everyone likes to face and makes everyone look good. Bortles has been really fine. I'm looking, his worst outing was against Buffalo a couple weeks back. And given his price in the mid 5,000s, it still didn't kill you probably, but his typical average over the last few weeks is in the mid 20s. So I think Bortles is going to be a really popular play. I said, and go back and listen. One of the first shows we did, I said, I think Jacksonville's a better team than people give them credit for on both sides of the ball. And I'm happy to see them living up to it. It's been so bad in Jacksonville for so long. They've taken a lot of flack, and there's solid fantasy options now.
To me, Blake Bortles is the poor man's Jacksonville version of Andrew Luck right now. Like he's going to throw a ton of interceptions, but the passing volume and I guess sort of the continuity that he has with Allen Robinson right now is real. And they got the boost to their lineup with Julius Thomas there as well. So, and they have never, I think they've had one single good week where they actually ran the ball well. So they're sort of like in that same sort of San Diego game flow, New York Giants game flow, where you can't run the ball consistently. So he's in the shotgun 90-something% of the time, and he's going to have 40+ passes. So doesn't help that or doesn't hurt that Fantasy Labs and PFF have him ranked as a number 4 quarterback this week for Week 10, right behind Andy Dalton. So I'm right there with you. I want to throw my home run play before we move over to running backs here. Talk me into or out of Matt King in the Castle against Tampa Bay for Week 10. Am I crazy or am I okay with that?
There's a case that can be made based on the matchup.
Tampa Bay's terrible.
Terrible. 19 touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks.
Right.
Matt Castle also not great. Who's going to be worse here? It's like one of those kind of situations. But I will have some shares of Matt Castle. He's $5,000. He's also cheap on DraftKings. He's also cheap on FanDuel. Although you can get Landry Jones for cheaper. So on FanDuel, might be tempted to do that.
It's like a Groupon, really. You can use either of those. It's like, hey, you scan the coupon, it's 50% off. You give it to your friends. Everyone uses it. Everyone enjoys the discount. They're all happy. Yeah, I'm definitely Grouponing with Castle. And if Landry Jones gets in there against Cleveland has been absolutely terrible, riddled with injuries. So, there'll be a ton of cash game ownership in DeAngelo Williams once again against Cleveland. It'll be well over 30%. I'll be shocked if it's under 30%. Are you?
I'm with you 100%. If you want to go really out on a limb, Kirk Cousins gets the Saints. He's playing at home against New Orleans, and the Saints have allowed 10 touchdowns in the past 2 games. And that's a lot. Yeah. I know people had some high expectations for Kirk Cousins. I don't know, presumably in garbage time. He didn't really live up to that. 1 touchdown, 1 interception, just over 200 yards last week. But I think I'll have some exposure to Kirk Cousins too. He's a couple $100 more. But I just don't think the Saints can stop anyone.
No, they absolutely can't. I'm regretting instantly playing Tampa Bay, playing Saints D like in my season-long league, because I was like, oh, okay, well, it's Tampa Bay. These, should be okay with 6 teams on bye. No, I got 1 fantasy point, and that's instant regret. Just like picking Amari Cooper. I don't know which one's worse.
Cooper didn't have that bad of a day. It was a good day. It just wasn't as good as Crabtree.
Compared to Crabtree, he was a special teamer. Cam Newton, by the way, I think that we just got to start mentioning him overall. Yeah. People just keep expecting him sort of to come back down to earth at some point. They may be the best team in the NFC. 34.58 fantasy points on DraftKings. 297, 3 scores, 9 rushes for 57 yards. He's doing everything with what looks like nothing. He's got Greg Olsen and and keeps turning people like Philly Brown and Ted Ginn into superstars. Yeah. Right. It's so I'll definitely have some shares, definitely against Tennessee for Cam Newton. Very reasonable at 7K. All right, running back position here now, Renee. Todd Gurley is up the top projected player according to DraftKings on the PFF optimizer. DeAngelo Williams, we know that there's going to be a ton of ownership. So do you feel like we can just safely say, all right, there's some top cash game options and then move on to some more interesting plays?
I'm fine with saying that, and I think those are 2.
Those will be the 2 top options for sure. Yeah. All right, so sliding down a little bit here in salary, who can you make a case for?
You can make a strong case for Doug Martin. against Dallas. Dallas has a pretty soft run defense. I wrote a lot about them last week. And DeMarco Murray, and actually I like DeMarco Murray again this week. He's really kind of settled in to the offense. I think his confidence helps his game a lot. So those are two guys in that kind of mid-ish tier. Murray's a little bit more expensive than Martin. Martin has a little bit better matchup, so I tend to favor Doug Martin. But we've also seen like the polar opposite versions of Doug Martin this season. We've seen the 30 fantasy point and the 3 fantasy point version.
The 11 carries from last week. It's a little maddening, but
it is.
If you're willing to do the same thing that we talked about, like at quarterback with some guys who, might be a little bit, of a fade because of past performance. I think Doug Martin fits that profile perfectly because
no one likes to
some pretty good fantasy performances. And you just take these 11 carries from last week against the Giants and throw it out. And you look at the just like rushing attempts alone, 23, 19, 24, 20. Then he has a 14, but then 21 against the Saints. So he's been super consistent in terms of that's just rushing touches. That doesn't even count the 3 to 5 passing targets he's been getting a game there as well. So I think he's overall very, very safe and very, very affordable at 5,600. So with you 100%.
Yeah, and Murray's, you can say the same about him. Nobody likes to use him. He's let people down before, and these are the guys to target for your tournaments that, I think either are safe enough for cash games, but their ownership will be lower in tournaments as well. So
yeah. And as long as DraftKings continues to hate on Lamar Miller and that price tag, I'm just going to have a ton of shares over and over. This guy there's no reason he should be underpriced below Mark Ingram, for example, in my mind. You take a look at the game log here. He only got 12 rushing attempts, but he hit pay dirt twice in the end zone. 7 for 7 for 97 yards, an absolute weapon out of the backfield. So he's been increasing his targets every week since Dan Campbell has taken over as coach in the passing game, which is very strong for his value. And you know that Philadelphia, we've seen running backs have success again, even though that is like a fairly strong defense overall. So
one touchdown on the ground they've allowed this year. I'm less enthusiastic than you about Miller's.
I just don't think you can ignore the price. He's guaranteed 20 plus touches at 5,400. I understand what you're saying though, that is a very strong defense, but you don't have to get it on the ground with Lamar Miller. You can get it out of the passing game.
That's right.
All right. Let's go quick rapid fire here. Not a great matchup for Jeremy Langford, but super affordable at 4,800. What do you do?
No, he was really good too.
Yes.
I think I'm looking elsewhere.
Okay. Do you want shares of LeGarrette Blount at 4,900, or are you going to gamble on somebody like James White?
No, and no.
Okay. It's like
I'll be using the New England pass game.
Okay, fair. Well, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Sharkhandrick West, super cheap, on the road at Denver, bad as matchup as you can get. Fading.
Yep.
Okay. Are you interested in anybody? Because I think Kelsey, Macklin, take everybody off the board against Kansas City in Denver, correct?
Not
okay.
Interested, no.
And then last guy I'll mention here, James Starks at 4,900.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about Starks. I was going to ask you him.
I think Starks to me is going to be like you can make a case for him in cash games. Eddie Lacy leaves with a groin injury once again and has looked terrible all season. So I'm not buying. And I don't understand what the narrative of the coach speak is in Green Bay. They're like, oh yeah, we got to get Eddie Lacy going here. The guy's been injured every week and he's being outplayed by James Starks. So what do you mean by getting him going? Do you mean sit him down for a month and then activate him? I don't understand what's happening, but James Starks has thoroughly outplayed him, and Eddie Lacy has looked like a shell of himself. So to me, I think James Starks is plenty safe, and you're not going to get burned if you only get, if you get a sort of a low performance out of James Starks, sort of similar to Lamar Miller, where it doesn't have to come all on the ground for James Starks in order to have fantasy value. 8 targets last game, 6 receptions, 83 reception yards, and a touchdown to go with 10 carries. So there you have that. I do have concerns about the run blocking situation of the Green Bay Packers because it has graded out, I believe, in at least in the bottom 10, I believe bottom 5. So they have a serious issue there. But as long as you have Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball, that's what you want anyway. And if he can do damage in the passing game, it's actually more valuable to you on DraftKings than actually getting the carries. So that's my take there. All right, let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver here. Renee, some top options for cash and GPP for us.
Oh, we could mention Carlos Williams too as another cheap guy if you're playing the Thursday slate. Not the best matchup, but he's been shown to be fairly effective no matter who he's faced when he's gotten the volume.
Okay, fair question, fair point, and I want to ask you a question. Do you still feel that way if LaShawn McCoy is active? Because Rex Ryan is basically pretending like his shoulder isn't even injured right now.
No, I don't feel that way if McCoy is active. So not in this matchup. In easier matchups, I would. I actually like Carlos Williams quite a bit, even if LaShawn McCoy is healthy, but not against the Jets. This could be easily a 10-7 game. Right.
We'll see how much truth Rex Ryan has to his, boasting confidence for LaShawn McCoy is like, shoulder injury, shoulder injury. Yeah, he was limited today. Okay, if it's not an issue, why didn't he practice in full? So we'll have to see how it all ends up really shaking out. Having said that, Rex Ryan has shown an affinity to use LaShawn McCoy at less than 100%. So basically, he just like leaves it up to him. Like, hey, you want to play? Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Your hamstring's 60%. Yeah, okay, no problem. You can kill fantasy owners the first 3 weeks, playing at less than 100%. So I am concerned. There's reasons for me to be concerned overall. If LaShawn McCoy is the guy, then I'll fade them both. So, all right, wide receiver options here. What do you do with Odell Beckham Jr. this week? Here's a good question. Has a top projection, but New England has been known to take what you do best and take it away. We've known that for quite some time. Do you have fears about Odell Beckham and his productivity against New England next week?
I'm so torn about this game. I'm not a big Eli Manning fan. I rooted for the Patriots in all the Super Bowls. I'm bitter. Mm-hmm. But I'm also scared. I'm also like, God, maybe the Giants just own this team. So at his price, I do believe in what you just said, though. I do believe that the Patriots will do their best to take away your best weapon. Mm-hmm. And that is far and away Odell Beckham Jr. So I think I'm going to have very little, if any, exposure to OBJ this week.
Yeah, I think I'll take a share somewhere maybe, and it won't even be like in a Millie Maker lineup. It'll just be like in a $3 Thursday, Monday to Monday GPP or something where I can just mix up my lineups and not be too concerned about it at all. But I would much prefer somebody like Julian Edelman for 600 less against the Giants. You know what? St. Louis has some good D, but Alshon Jeffrey is just getting so much volume. Like there isn't really anybody else in the passing game that you can even really trust outside of him. We saw Zach Miller come up with a touchdown. Martellus Bennett got some targets there, but I would feel actually a lot more comfortable sliding all the way down to Randall Cobb for 6,700, given the matchup as well. Any other wide receiver options that you'll be locking in this week?
I really like Allen Robinson. I mentioned yes. I'm probably going to have some lineups with Demaryius Thomas, others with Emmanuel Sanders, because I never can choose between them. I always think that Demaryius Thomas, I believe that Thomas is the more talented receiver, but Sanders.
He's also the bigger ball dropper for whatever reason. Have you seen some of these passes? Like he looks at it and he looks like he's looking at stone or something like that. I don't understand what's been happening.
The Manning touch is gone.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but Emmanuel Sanders has basically, I think Emmanuel Sanders is my super safe cash play. Because if you look at his game logs overall, he has either been super consistent in terms of catches and touches, which you love, or catches or targets, which you love for DraftKings, and it will occasionally blow up for 100 plus yards and a deep score. And then Demaryius Thomas is the guy who has 3 touchdown red zone upside. So I'd probably prefer him to GPPs. That's how I separate it. So just my personal take on that. But having said that, I still probably want shares of either one this week. Are you going back to back with Mr. Crab, the man of the sea, Mr. Seafood? No,
just because of what I said about Derek Carr. I do think that Minnesota's defense is legit. And I like to take advantage of the matchups when they're there. I love Crabtree's volume. Obviously love what he does. He's been one of my mainstay players. His price is up quite a bit this week, and in the difficult matchup, there's just other guys I'm looking at.
All right.
Bryant is cheaper, for example. I like the Miami guys. I like Jarvis Landry and Rashard Matthews this week. Matthews is a good good cheap guy, 4,700. So no Crabtree for me.
Okay. For what it's worth, his counterpart, the guy who let everyone in the world down, Amari Cooper, has a top 5. Yeah. Amari Cooper, I would like trip him if I walk past him in the street or something like that.
He had 20 DraftKings points.
It's not good enough, Amari.
21.8.
Yeah. Yeah, so top 5 matchup, blah, 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 Amari Cooper. Xavier Rhodes, for whatever reason, is the worst corner that Minnesota features, despite the fact that they have a decent overall defense. And popping up this week as a top 5 wide receiver cornerback matchup for week 5. So those of you who want to get back in, there's probably the preferred guy, although he wasn't the preferred guy last week. And also another thing that I want to mention, because I think that if you ask people out there who aren't paying as close enough attention to the numbers, they still feel like Seattle is an overall top secondary in the league, and they haven't performed nearly as well as they have in years past. And it's evidenced by Larry Fitzgerald popping up as the number 1 wide receiver advantage play here this week against Deshaun Sheed. So it isn't necessarily who am I thinking of? The top Richard Sherman, who's been the guy that you have to target, but the other guys just haven't been doing their job. Kerry Williams has a bad matchup, or I guess for himself, versus Michael Floyd, who also is in the top, I believe, like the top 10 or top 12. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to
probably a lot of Michael Floyd in my lineups.
Yes, Michael Floyd's super affordable coming off the bye. People sort of forgot that this guy's been a red zone monster the last 3 weeks.
Yep.
So
I'm going to mention Palmer too. Palmer will be in my contrarian plays article tomorrow. Plus, for the double reason of coming off the bye, being forgotten, and facing Seattle, which I think
they have to go on the road. People still assume that Seattle is like top 3 defense in the league, and they've had their share of good performances, but their secondary has been exposed on multiple occasions. So something to keep in mind when you're building your DFS lineups, because you're not going to see Carson Palmer highly ranked this week, but I think you should definitely have some shares on. So I'm with you 100% there.
Brandon Cooks 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. One more to think about.
He's good. He's sort of a little bit of a boomer bust guy, but he's been definitely a preferred target in the red zone, and I think he's the biggest wide receiver that they have.
And Breeze is on fire right now. So
yeah, absolutely. All right, tight end position here. We'll do our obligatory Gronk is good for 8K, and then are you ready for another round of tight end merry-go-round? I don't know what to call this here, but we'll just do either or with the tight ends and see who advances.
Where we get. Okay. I know who I want to end up on top, though. I'm a little biased.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try to start a little bit lower here today. Let's go with, all right, Richard Rodgers, who I'm very upset at because I benched him, and he comes up with, I think, 2 red zone touchdowns. He's all or nothing, just all or nothing. 5 catches for 19 yards and 2 scores. So killer, but that would just be awesome at 3K. All right, Richard Rodgers or Jason Wynn?
I'll take Rodgers.
Okay. Richard Rodgers or Travis Kelce?
Rodgers.
All right. Richard Rodgers or Jimmy Graham?
Oh, wow. That is so harsh. Wow.
Jimmy Graham, 7 for 75 on 10 targets against the Cowboys.
And then Arizona is not good historically against tight ends. All right. I'll take Graham.
You can see the pain in her face. You know that Jimmy Graham has just been.
It's partly because you have to ask the question, and it's a hard one to answer.
Right. Well, I'm just going up the ladder here on the optimizer. These guys are almost all in order.
Because their prices are all over the place.
Right, they are. Okay. Jimmy Graham or Jordan Reed?
Jordan Reed.
Okay, me too. Jordan Reed or Martellus Bennett?
Jordan Reed.
All right, Jordan Reed or Greg Olsen?
Yeah. Olsen has a good matchup this week. Price aside, I'll say Greg Olsen, but because you can get Jordan Reed for like $1,700 less, or what is he, like $1,900 less? I can't do math right now. 17 is right, I think. I'll take Jordan Reed.
Okay. Yeah, 46 to 63. So yeah, you're spot on. Did you say Reed for price considerations? Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Okay.
But I love Olsen. You can't. I mean,
yeah, we're in the top tier. There's only 2 other options right now. So Jordan Reed or Gary Barnidge.
Reed. Sorry.
Okay.
I just can't do it. I don't know.
Well, to me, here's the entire difference. If McCown's playing, then Barnidge is a real possibility. Okay. And a better red zone threat than Jordan Reed is, in my mind. So, and a better quarterback. And it's not like Josh McCown's a world beater or anything. He just has performed better than Kirk Cousins. Then the last guy I'll throw out here, Jordan Reed or Tyler Eifert.
Again, price consideration, it's Reed, but very close. All these top guys. So Barnidge, Eifert, and Olsen are all significant. Well, Barnidge isn't, but Eifert and Olsen are significantly more expensive, and I'd rather spend at the other positions. I don't think there's going to be a big enough difference in the production to account for the $2,000 or $1,700. Okay,
fair enough. And the last guy that actually that's everybody. So I think what we'll probably do is what I'm going to do is take the 4 tight ends in the mix here and just mix and match in my GPPs and try to cover all the bases because you got some great options outside of Rob Gronkowski there. So good 5 or 6 options. All right, and then finally defense here, Renee, to put a bow on the show here. Who do you like this week?
I think Carolina is probably my favorite defense on the board. 3,300 at Tennessee. Tennessee, yes, has been more effective, but they're still the league's, like, I don't know how to say it. They give up the most fantasy points to opposing defenses so far on the season. And the Panthers have been, good opportunistic unit. They have 18 total takeaways. Norman's returned a couple of those for touchdowns.
Yeah. They're the safest for cash for sure, and and they're not so expensive that you can't use them in GPPs. So,
Arizona.
Yes,
Arizona's.
Russell Wilson is trash. Russell Wilson, find out what day they do, recycling collection, and then set Russell Wilson out there with the rest of your goods because he is terrible.
Will they turn him into something we can use next year?
Yeah, right. Just feel good about Mother Earth after you recycle Russell Wilson for somebody else that's useful.
Wilson. Wow, I'm a fan, but yeah, I don't think he's made it into a single one of my DFS lineups.
No, I think I've used one share in week 1 or 2.
And maybe early.
Wash my hands clean of that whole situation. Cleveland, I think in either spot you can make a case for the Pittsburgh D. It'll be a little more dicey if Landry Jones has to be in there because he's going to be a guy who's going to hand the ball right back to them. But so they're more than reasonable for 3K. That you've seen them struggle every single second half for them. So their just offense is overall sputtering. Anybody else? Denver D. I don't even know why we didn't mention that right off the bat. Maybe we just forgot about them. But
their price went up a little bit, but super solid.
Just $100 more than DK, so I'll probably mix and match them with Carolina as well, along with Pittsburgh. Cincinnati, yay or nay?
I'm okay with it. They're my season-long team, and I'm defense in a lot of leagues, and I'm rolling with them this week, but I'm not super enthusiastic about it. You like that they're home, but it is a primetime game, and DeAndre Hopkins is always scary. I think he catches everything. The Rams are okay though. You said you had to stoop to New Orleans this week in a season long. I had to stoop to the Chargers, and that actually worked out okay.
You got the pick 6, so that was good. Yeah. Very build you out. So I'm with you. So a core defenses of Carolina, Denver, Arizona there as well, and then after that it gets a little bit dicier if you're stepping out with Cincinnati, the Jets, and potentially Green Bay or St. Louis, some of your other options there.
Right, Green Bay is not a bad flyer. They could have a big day.
Right. Yeah, as long as Matt Stafford's under the helm, you probably got a good shot at getting a pick somewhere. So, all right, what's coming up for the rest of the week for you before we move on, Renee?
Oh, lots of stuff. All the usuals. I've got my Flex article that I'll tell you about some safe, high upside, and value plays for your DK Flex position at ESPN tomorrow. I've got contrarian plays and bargain plays for week 10 at Roto World coming up Wednesday and Thursday. And then my DraftKings plays for PFF will be out Friday or first thing Saturday. And I take a look at the highest projected scoring games by Vegas for ESPN also on Friday.
All right, and I'll be hosting the RotoWire DFS podcast for the rest of the week. Friday and Saturday we'll have the lineup breakdown show and ownership percentages for Thursday FanDuel GPPs. So make sure you check that out, and then I'll have my Saturday regular wide receiver, running back, punt plays article on this very site, profootballfocus.com. Thanks always to my co-host, Renee Miller, for her expert insight. Make sure you follow her on Twitter at ReneeMiller01. And thanks again to DraftKings, the leader in 1 week fantasy sports, for sponsoring this podcast. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.